Hi, I'm Patricia Allingham Carlson, and this is my watercolor painting video, Stone Pathway. This is a 4-part video. I was using a reference photo presented in a challenge by a Facebook group called Watercolor Enthusiasts. In part 1, I'm working from the reference photo. I lay out 1-point perspective. I start the background wet on wet using bright colors as well as dark colors to define the slopes. I begin in with trees, and I use my spray bottle to create wet patterns, masking with paper. I hope you'll like it and give it a thumbs up. Now let's paint. This is a video on my creation of Stone Pathway. The inspiration for this painting was posted by a lovely Facebook page, and photo credits are given to the photographer. It was a 1-point perspective photograph with stairway leading backward into a forest. The stairway was made out of stone. So I start out laying out my perspective lines with my ruler, and I spray water to keep them in line. I am sketching with my paintbrush, something I enjoy. It's sort of a challenge. The stairway went up a slight incline and had some huge, beautiful rocks placed along it, or perhaps the stairway was built around it. So I'm sketching out the basic slopes, where the stairway starts and begins, and stops and begins again. And I have it in mind to use fantasy colors rather than realistic colors. So I'm having fun and exploring an idea. There was a wall on the right side of the staircase, and it was a little challenging to get some of the angles of that correct. But sketching with the paintbrush, I can sort of fix it as I go. Now I'm keeping my paper on the wet side by spraying it. If it starts to dry out, the colors won't spread around the way I want them to. Of course, if I got the paper too wet, I wouldn't have any control over where the paint goes. So it's sort of a judgment call. I'm placing my yellows where there was some strong sunlight hitting. And beginning the background. I'm using strong, concentrated colors. And I just love how watercolor spreads on wet paper. It does unexpected things, and sometimes they're just really, really pretty. At this point, I'm not mixing in the palette, I'm mixing directly on the paper by letting the paint run into other colors. and marking where a tree will be in the future. And putting in a nice pink or magenta color. I am having fun at this point. Painting watercolor really is a lot of fun. But when you create a lot of blurs like this with colors everywhere, to my mind, you have to add some structure. And I've added structure by suggesting some slopes. I suggested them by making them dark and having them slant upwards. So I have my blurry, beautiful colors, and then where each slope is, I'll put a shadow. And there you can see some more slopes. And perhaps you can also see how the left side is now becoming more structured. So as the stairs go up, there's a series of slopes heading off into the woods. I'm painting in some trees at this point where there was a little group of trees growing up from this slope. They slope at the about the mid-ground point. And since I'm working wet on wet here, a lot of these colors will soften and fade as they begin to dry. I'm also blotting off the tops of the slopes to make them more pronounced, because the top should be light where it's catching the sunlight, just as the bottom goes down into shadow. I wet the area I want to lighten, and then I press it with my paper towel to lift some paint. And I'm adding some small details. Now I've re-wet the stairs, and I'm adding some very pretty colors. Not very normal colors, we would say, but I'm playing around with colors that I think are pretty. Almost like it's a rainbow step. The paper blocks my spray from hitting it, so I can work in certain areas and keep other areas dry, so the paint doesn't all run together. and defining the side of the stairs by painting darkness next to it. As I paint around the big boulder on the right side of the stone stairway, you could see the boulder start to emerge. I leave a light area at the top so it will stand out and appear to be having reflected light on it. Now I'm adjusting the left side of the stairs, and then I'll have to go back and make sure I incorporate the background over to meet that side. Detailing in some small textures on the left side slope. And there's the top of the stairs, defined by some darks and getting incorporated into the forest. I'm adding some shrubbery lines, again dark and light alternating to show the dimensionality of the form. And I'm also defining a boulder, which is the further back one on the path, also right next to the stairs. A little more shading on the closer boulder as well as the further one. And figuring out how the wall along the side of the path is best to be shown. I hope you enjoyed my watercolor demonstration of Stone Pathway. I'd like to thank the Facebook page Watercolor Enthusiasts for the interesting challenge project presented to their members. Finding sources for new ideas and challenges offer great opportunities to learn. There's a link to check out Watercolor Enthusiasts' Facebook page in the description box below. I hope you enjoyed this video series and you'll give it a thumbs up. Your comments are appreciated too. You can subscribe and ring the bell to see all my new videos. And I'll see you next painting.